Coming up on the show, plenty of new laws are taking effect here in the state. We're going to break down one which looks to save lives in Georgia schools. Also, a recent physical altercation between an Uber driver and a passenger is bringing into question over what the rights are for a driver and a person being picked up. And we're going to take a deep dive into data centers and explain why they use so much of the community's resources. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to share their take, give us a little insight on today's top stories. We also try to have a little bit of fun as well. Let's start you off with this. Several new laws are going into effect today, among them one of which requires every public school to have at least one functioning automatic external defibrillator, or an AED, and to make it accessible during all school hours. With us this morning is Laura Bracey. She is with the American Heart Association. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thanks. So good to be here.
Yes. Talk to me about this, these defibrillators, this new law, this AED law. How much of it is a game changer for our schools?
Well, it's huge, of course, coming from the American Heart Association. You know, our goal is to make sure that every single person who has a cardiac event survives that event. Prior to this, the law was that the only place AEDs were required in schools was for a high school sporting event. So that was the only place prior to this that our law was required to have an AED.
So we hear all the time that, every second counts. So how much of a difference is this to have that on site for people at schools in case somebody goes into cardiac arrest?
It'll be huge. I mean, we estimate that 23,000 children across the country have a cardiac event every single year. And so knowing that our kids, whether they're in kindergarten through 12th grade, have an AED accessible. And not only this bill, not only does it make sure that there's an AED on site, but it makes sure that there's a written protocol in place that includes a response team. I mean, all too often you hear stories where an AED was present, but no one knew where the AED was or it was locked up. So this makes sure that there's a written response, and that not only that, but there's practice drills that are done.
I was going to talk to you about that. There's requiring drills and training be done. How often do you have to do that, or how often should that be done?
The bill says twice a year, which is very similar to like a bill or a drill that you would have for like a tornado. So these drills will just be in place just like that.
Yeah. When it comes to schools, we talk a lot about the funding. What's your message to districts and schools and school boards hesitant about the investment in AEDs?
You know, it's interesting. This was a coalition of partners worked on this, including the Georgia chapter of the American College of Cardiology and the Georgia Nurses Association. And we really ran into very little opposition or hesitation to do this. And I think it's because schools want to make sure that kids are protected while they're there, and also teachers, that if something happens, that you're able to take care of that person. But if there is hesitation, I know that there is a lot on schools. The American Heart Association has a lot of resources on how to get these cardiac emergency response plans in place, including example written protocols. And so we're here to help. And we also have Project Save here that's run out of the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. So a lot of resources to help schools.
Yeah. You hear about this happening a lot in high schools where student athletes are maybe on the football field or basketball or maybe playing baseball, and suddenly they just pass out. How do you know? What are the signs that somebody's going into cardiac arrest?
Really a cardiac arrest is when the heart completely stops. So the sign is going to be that there is no movement, no breathing, no pulse. There's really not much more to it than, cardiac arrest is when the heart stops. But, if we always say if there's warnings like chest pain or difficulty breathing, those are some signs that you might want to talk to a doctor while you're doing physical activity.
Do you know how Georgia stacks up to other states when it comes to protecting students against sudden cardiac arrest?
Well, now that we've got not only the AEDs that are required and a trained coach at the sporting events, but also have the AEDs in schools, we really are doing really, really well. And a lot of our states, as this is an American Heart Association initiative across the country, a lot of our states are coming on board, but we were one of the first to do both of those.
Mm-hmm. Is there something else in the bill that makes Georgia, make it a game changer for Georgia?
I'm sorry, what was that, Chesley?
Is there anything else in the bill that makes this a game changer for Georgia in particular?
Doing the drills is really, having that kind of spelled out in the bill is something that's really goes above and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So what can parents do, or teachers or even students for that matter, to help make sure that their school is ready for this type of emergency?
Well, you can always learn hands-only CPR to make sure that you're part of a response team. And we have those resources on our heart.org website as well. But just make sure that you know where the AED is, ask your teacher, and that's what you can do to help be a part of the response.
Gotcha. All right, Laura Bracey, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for the insight and the tips as well. We're going to try to make this, make sure it saves lives, which is a good thing.
That's right.
All right, thanks a lot. Really appreciate you. All right, let's take a look at our forecast, folks, because today is going to be a game changer or a difference maker. Let's put it that way. Got a front that's going to be moving through the area. Now, it will bring scattered showers and thunderstorms our way. Those thunderstorms, folks, could be on the strong, severe side. That front will come through and help to dry us out. Now, I'm not expecting that to arrive into the area, or at least through the area, until late tonight going into Wednesday. So ahead of it, the atmosphere is nice and moist, and so we're going to see these thunderstorms popping up. In fact, a couple showers out there forming as we speak. No thunderstorms yet. I don't think that happens until after 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon. 87 degrees for the high temperature today. Notice a 20% chance or less for showers on Wednesday, so starting the drying out process by then. And then by Thursday, Friday, dry, but hot. Those temperatures go back up into the 90s. You're looking at 92 degrees for the high temperature on Thursday. By Friday, we're looking at 93. That's the 4th of July, so it's going to be a nice one out there. Notice we start off around 72. It probably will be a muggy start for those AJC Peachtree Road Race runners. And then in the afternoon, you go to your cookout, looking at 93 degrees for the high temperature. That's going to be hot. Yep, you're going to have to take some breaks, get back into the air, and then the evening, get to see the thunderstorms, get to see the fireworks, and with a few extra clouds, that's going to make it look beautiful because the fireworks will ricochet off the clouds. It'll be a nice look. 93 degrees on Saturday, and then you notice the rain starts to go back to an uptick as we head into Sunday and Monday, a 30% chance on Monday, with temperatures remaining in the 90s. Don't go anywhere. We're back with more show right after the break. Welcome back to the show. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, home of your Atlanta Falcons, and the World Cup coming in less than a year, right? Looks beautiful on the outside. Plenty of sunshine out there, starting off nice and sunny. We'll see more clouds begin to bubble in as we head into the afternoon. We are anticipating some scattered showers and thunderstorms to be around, and I think they'll be a little bit more widespread than they were just yesterday. So be ready, folks, this afternoon. After a marathon vote-a-rama on Capitol Hill, most Republican senators intended on passing President Trump's big, beautiful bill by the 4th of July, Friday. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. And Alice, we saw the senators pull an all-nighter last night, and they're still in session as we speak. Get us caught up on where they are at the moment.
Yeah, so they broke a record for the longest vote-a-rama, this process where senators in both parties lobbed out potential amendments all throughout the night to this bill, big bill, before they would get to final passage. And most of those amendments were shot down, not all, but most of them. Republicans have been working amongst themselves, and they still are right now, to try to come up with one final big amendment that is going to appease the holdouts. And we expect that there are some in the fiscal conservative column that would include Rand Paul, who has said he's a no vote because of how much is expected to be added to the deficit through this bill, more than $3 trillion. There are also those on the more moderate end. We have Tom Tillis, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski that we're counting in that bucket, who are opposed to Medicaid changes in this bill. And they are either, Tillis is a for sure no vote, and Collins and Murkowski are maybes. That's 4. So if it stands at 4 right now, that's enough to sink this vote. So they are all kind of behind closed doors trying to figure out a sweet spot compromise that can get enough Republicans on board. They know they're not getting a single Democrat. And that huddling is ongoing until they can figure something out and bring this forward for a final vote. Right now, we're just stuck and waiting until they sort through it.
Do you think we could see a vote today, later today?
certainly possible, if not likely. You know, we've talked about how at the end of the day, this big, beautiful bill, as President Trump calls it, is basically wrapping up his entire domestic policy agenda and funding that and moving it all forward. And so he's been putting a lot of pressure. He's been on the phone and trying to get any holdouts on board. We just heard from him, actually, as he was taking off. He's headed to Florida. And he spoke about wanting to get this over the finish line. He's acknowledged that it's complicated. He said he thinks it's going to happen in the end because it is difficult to take a stand against President Trump. Tom Tillis, one of the four that I just mentioned, who said he's voting against this bill, has already said he's not running for Congress again because he opposed a procedural vote in the past over the weekend and got such stiff pushback that he said he wasn't going to run. So it's difficult to take a stand against something that is so kind of ingrained in President Trump's agenda and what he wants to see done for folks in the Republican Party right now.
Yeah. Meanwhile, former Trump ally Elon Musk is tossing his weight around against the bill. How much of an influence does he have, and is it enough to maybe kill the bill?
I don't think so. I mean, Elon Musk, you know, is an interesting character in all of this, and the fact that he has come out again because it seems like that war of words between the president and Musk had died down and it reignited overnight. It's certainly interesting that he's out here again, and he has said that he thinks there is insane spending included in this bill, that he's calling it he's calling Republicans the Porky Party, and he's promising to campaign against anybody who, any Republicans who campaigned on cutting costs, cutting spending, and then backed this bill that is expected to add more than $3 trillion to the deficit. President Trump fired back overnight, saying that without subsidies, Elon would probably have to close up shop and go back to South Africa, and suggesting that Doge take a look at that, even saying Doge might be the monster that could eat Elon Musk. So there's certainly, you know, a ramping up rhetoric going back and forth there, but whether or not it plays out in any way, you know, on the Senate floor, I think probably not.
Yeah, very interesting, Alice. Really appreciate your insight on this. Keep us updated. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're going to talk to a former law enforcement officer about the protection rights for Uber drivers and passengers. This is The Take. We're back right after this.
I cannot refund you your money.
Why not? You sound you are. I requested a call.
Get the out the car. What the is wrong with you? You got the right.
All right, this was a recent altercation between an Uber driver, Miracle Smith, and her passenger, Tabitha Turner. It ended after Smith allegedly pepper sprayed Turner and forcibly removed her from the car. Now, attorney for Turner plans to file a class action lawsuit against Uber. Smith was issued a misdemeanor battery charges and was removed from as an Uber driver. It's a scary scene, but there are ways to avoid being caught. Are there ways of being caught in a similar situation or altercation? And it's important to know both sides, both rights, right? With us now is Dr. Thaddeus Johnson. He's from Georgia State's Department of Criminal Justice and Criminology, and is also a long-time law enforcement officer. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, break this down for us. Now, what's the legal and ethical standpoint where the line is between a driver's right to feel safe and a passenger's right to fair treatment?
No, absolutely. And I'm glad that you're covering and talking about both sides of it because it's things that the passenger can do, things that the driver can do. In general, as a passenger, you know, this is a private transportation contract. You're not detained, right? As long as the vehicle is safe to stop, you can request to be let out, even mid-trip. And you have a right to ask the driver to pull over and let you out in a safe, lit public area like a parking lot or a store. And no explanation is even really needed, right? You have a right to feel safe and in control of your experiences. Drivers must comply. No, these rideshares prohibit them from forcing you to stay at the car. If a driver refuses to let you out, it can be considered false imprisonment. You know, and to that point, if you feel unsafe, call 911 and things like that. They also have Share My Trip types of apps within the app, so you can let your family members or emergency contacts track you as you drive. So those are just some things, you know, that as a rider you can do. You know, if you're a driver, you know, first of all, you cannot forcibly remove anybody from the vehicle, and you have a right to feel safe in your own vehicle. And so these things are so important. So don't escalate, don't argue, don't use force, perhaps don't use pepper spray. right? Maintain a calm tone and let them know you're in the trip for safety reasons. And you choose an appropriate location so they can be safe, like a gas station or a store. So you have rights on both sides. If you're a driver, use your dash cam. Both of you all document everything and try not to escalate things that involve law enforcement when necessary.
You mentioned that you can't forcibly remove someone from your own vehicle as a driver. At that point, should she have gotten maybe out of the car herself and left her there and then called 911? Is that how that should work?
Yeah, so there's various ways, but if I was the driver in this situation, right, I'm playing Monday morning, literally Monday morning quarterback.
Right.
The one thing that perhaps you can do is if you can't get across, if you can't reconcile, simply I would cut the vehicle off, put it in a park, cut the vehicle off, let the windows down, and I would stand on the side of the road. I will call the rideshare company and contact them, and I will also call law enforcement because I have a person who will not leave my vehicle. So those are things that you can do to protect yourself. Do not take the law into your own hand. We have trained professionals for that.
Gotcha. All right, so looking at this video, right, and you got two parties telling two different stories. How much of a role does that video going to play in getting this solved?
No, this is why I said document everything. Without that video, it would have just been here, she say versus she say, right? And that's necessarily good and hard to prove. And so what the video allows us to see is what escalated the situation, who perhaps was the aggressor, if the self-defense argument was appropriate, if there was evidence for it. So it allows and protects both sides and allows law enforcement and the rideshare company to kind of figure out what happened. Also, if there's a civil suit, this is going to come into play very importantly in this particular matter, because this evidence shows how things played out and not just a snapshot in time.
When is the pepper spray okay when you feel like your life is threatened? If there was something that could cause either party, right, to begin to use something, right? When their life feels threatened, is that okay or never okay?
Well, so one thing is that OC and pepper spray is not necessarily considered a lethal, in general, a lethal weapon, right, or deadly force. So that's one reason why the driver was charged with a misdemeanor and not a felony. However, if this plays out and say you're sprayed with the pepper spray and pushed out of the vehicle, or you feel like someone is trying to assault you, then you have an imminent fear of threat of a bodily harm or death. And now that can kind of move into that spectrum of when does it become the perception of life and death. But in general, we do not consider OC or pepper spray to be a deadly force type of weapon.
Wow, that's excellent to know. Excellent to know. Some very good points, Dr. Thaddeus. Really appreciate your insight on this. We may have you back depending on how this case goes, because there's still a lot of questions, obviously. People wanting to know what their rights are as far as being a driver and also a passenger. And in this particular case, it's kind of like either way, right? It goes kind of up and down.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes to show why try to de-escalate, try to document, try to communicate, and understanding that if you're not happy with your driver, you can simply cancel the ride, get a refund through the company, report the driver about their vehicle and things, and then move on with your lives. You may be delayed a little bit, but we won't be covering this on the news.
Gotcha. Absolutely right. Dr. Thaddeus Johnson, really appreciate you joining us and your insight. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Folks, don't go anywhere. There are some changes when it comes to online shopping that you're going to want to need to know. All right, we're going to talk about that with our consumer expert coming up. Stay right there. Welcome back to the show. You know, a big change meant to protect online shoppers just got pushed back. Let's bring in friend of the show, Morgan Ward, our consumer expert. So glad to see you. Always happy to have you on the show, Morgan.
Good morning, Chesley.
All right. Talk to us about this. This change was supposed to be easier to cancel, right? So what's the holdup with these things and what does it mean for our wallet?
Yeah, so the click to cancel amendment was supposed to allow consumers to be able to cancel their apps. And we've talked about how many apps we all have and subscriptions. And it should be as easy to cancel as it was to sign up. And for most of us, we know that that is just not the case now. So it has been pushed back until mid-July.
Okay, so guess we'll have to wait till then.
Yes, we'll have to wait till then.
All right, so what started as a scroll for deals is now ending in something much more physical, right?
For deals, yes. So people who used to look for deals online are now much more inclined to look for those deals in person as well, because we're just so used to looking for lower prices and being able to price compare that we do it wherever we are. We're deal hunters these days.
Yeah. And almost, to me, it seems like you almost, if you just speak it, it pops up on your phone, right?
Yes.
It comes looking for us.
Supposedly it's not supposed to do that, but it does seem like it does that. And in actual retail settings, something like 72% of people actually check to see if they can get a better deal, probably on Amazon or eBay, than what they see in front of them. So we are what they call showrooming. We're always looking for the best deal.
Yeah. Are you like that yourself? Are you one of those scrollers?
I hate to say it, but I am. And I try not to be, because you want to be able to have local retailers at the very least be able to profit. I don't want to give all my money to Amazon.
Oh, yeah, I can understand that. I certainly can understand that. All right, today's stories are blurring the lines between shopping and socializing, and it sounds like we have some Gen Zs to thank for this.
Gen Z always changes things, right? So yes, Gen Z has been much more inclined to have consumer experiences over products. And so obviously retailers have been trying to respond to that.
What are some stores doing that?
So for instance, Starbucks, now when you have a Starbucks in store, you can also have it in sort of a warm, cozy cup. So you have that kind of in-house feeling of having like a hot coffee in a cup, not in a paper cup. Let's see, a lot of high-end retailers have started creating food concepts as well. So not only can you buy their clothes, but you can be fancy and fashionable in their restaurants. Dick's Sporting Goods has now created a huge, like physically huge concept where you can actually play some of the sports that you buy the products for in these large stores. So everything from climbing the walls to running around. So, and it's already, the revenue there is already more than in their physical, just product-based stores. So retailers are responding.
So Morgan, are they leaving the baby boomers and the Gen Xers behind and just going after the Gen Zs, or what are they doing for us?
So they have to cultivate their next consumer, right? We're already getting to the end of our importance, and Gen X has always been the smallest generation. So Gen Z is who they really are looking at, and then of course we've got Gen Alpha coming right up behind them, who will be even a different set of preferences.
Who get all their money from the baby boomers and the Gen Xers.
Yeah, they've already sopped us dry.
Morgan Ward, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for your insight today. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later. All right. Some of those fun things you used to do over the summer may be in jeopardy thanks to tariffs. We're going to talk about that coming up. Stay right there. Well, from groceries to gas to your next vacation, prices are under pressure this summer, and a big part of that is due to the tariffs and economic uncertainty. Here to make sense of it all for us is Emory economic professor Dr. Kai-Ji Chen. Dr. Chen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Are Atlanta families expected to pull back on things like dining out, entertainment, and travel, or are there signs of strong spending still going on?
Yeah, I think that in the summer there's the economic uncertainty and the rising costs reshaping how family can travel, and the Airbnb report 43% of American plan to road trips this summer and cutting back their trip during duration and extras. And so there's a clear shift toward more budget conscious and intentional spending across travel and leisure. Yeah.
And you'll attribute that more toward the economic uncertainty more so than the tariffs, right? Or is it both?
Yeah, that's right.
Or is it both?
Excuse me, say it again.
Or I was asking you, is it both? Let me ask you another question here. Do you think Atlanta's summer jobs will feel the drag from these consumers spending less, especially for teens?
Yeah, I think that Yeah, I think that there's a lot of economic uncertainty at this point, and so that's caused the consumer that to choose more cost-conscious planning. And for example, they want to shorten their booking windows and shorten duration of the trips, and there could be more domestic trip than international ones. Yeah.
And so I'm sure retailers are looking forward to back to school, maybe having a strong back to school season. We do have a couple of holiday weekends coming up. How realistically are the tariffs to affect those things?
Yeah, and I think that because now there's still a lot of economic uncertainty, and I think that this can actually affect a lot of family spending on the back to school spending, and so I'm pretty sure that at this point the consumer sentiment is low according to the University of Michigan survey, and the consumer sentiment is actually pretty low at this point.
Do you think as a result of that, right, would costs come down for some of these spots that, people mostly go to as far as summer vacations, maybe some of the hotels, and those prices would start to come down because consumers are not partaking?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can see the airfares, then some of the costs actually are coming down. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So a staycation may be a little bit better than going away, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
Take a shorter trip. I get it. Yeah. All right. Are these categories where you expect them to be as far as Atlantans spending less, or what do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly, I think, the current economic situation is, and people try to look for the cost, the more conscious spending, like in July 4, instead of flying the long distance travel, and they may choose rather to drive, they just wait until the last second and make their travel.
All right, Dr. Chen, really appreciate you joining us. Thanks for your insight today.
Go for hotel.
All right, take care. All right, folks, it looks beautiful on the outside. If you're doing a staycation around here, well, today, at least your dry time will be during the morning hours. That's the way it's been for the last couple of days. As a matter of fact, we get some nice time, at least from about 8 o'clock in the morning till about 11 or 12. And then after that, we start to see these scattered showers popping up. If you can stand the heat, of course, you can be out there. It is going to be hot and humid once again today, but we'll be looking at some scattered showers coming in later on this afternoon, so make sure you're weather aware this afternoon. All right, this week, the Boys and Girls Clubs of America is launching a powerful new campaign, shining a national spotlight on a critical role of youth programs and how they play in shaping the next generation. It comes as Atlanta plays host to a summit focused on emotional safety and trauma enforced care for young people. Here to break it all down for us is Jennifer Bateman. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Talk to us about this campaign that the Boys and Girls Club has.
Well, we have, as you said, we have two special events happening right now. We've long been in the space of engaging and supporting clubs in supporting young people with their emotional and mental health. As you know, there's been an emotional and mental health crisis among our teens specifically over the last number of years. So with the very generous support of our ongoing partners like Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association and Kohl's, we're celebrating the great strides we've been making and bringing about 80 club professionals who are specialists, trauma-informed specialists, to Atlanta to learn from each other, to share best practices, and to continue to take their work back to the communities. But we also have the launch of, as you mentioned, our new campaign, America Needs Club Kids. I don't know if you can see I'm wearing the shirt. And that is a rally cry. It's a reminder that America does need club kids, not just for future leaders, but as solutions to today's challenges, like the mental and emotional health challenges. We need brave, resilient young people who overturn stigma and who are vulnerable and courageous, and who are then the leaders in these issues moving forward. And we need them right now, and we need America to invest in them.
Yeah, let's go back a little bit. When I was young, obviously when you were young, we had clubs. We had things that we could do and things to occupy our time. Was it cuts that took these programs away, and now we are trying to get them back, or what was it?
We've been around the whole time, Chess, 160 years. And yes, during the pandemic, it was certainly challenging. Clubs shifted to be able to meet the basic needs of families and communities. But we've seen rapid growth, both in the young people that we serve and the number of clubs. Right now, we have more than 5,500 clubs, and about 4,700 of them are actively engaged in trauma-informed practice and holistic mental health supports.
Yeah. The campaign touches on equality and access, right? How are you guys going to make sure that every kid in every zip code is included here in Atlanta?
That's exactly what our mission is, right? So we actually in Atlanta serve more than 25 communities. We here in this area have 25 clubs that provide mental and emotional wellness program daily to over 8,600 Atlanta youth. So that organization, which is actually my former Boys and Girls Club where I worked on the ground, continues to grow and reach more young people holistically with the programs, the meaningful relationships, and the supports.
Yeah, you have a trauma-informed summit that starts here today, right here in Atlanta. Why is emotional safety such a central part of youth development right now?
Yeah, I think for a while we as a nation really weren't considering how emotional health was as important and as all the other parts of well-being. Young people don't learn well, they can't gain the experiences. You can provide all the experiences in the world, but if young people can't be present and engaged because they're coming with an emotional health challenge or a trauma, we're leaving a lot of young people behind. So we've really expanded what we know as positive youth development to definitively be addressing the whole child, to meet them where they're at, to not leave any young person behind, so that they can really gain the skills from the programs and experiences that we offer.
Real quickly, somebody watching at home right now, they're passionate about this, they want to get involved. How do they do that?
If you have a passion for this work, if you want to get involved or find a local club, please go to www.bgca.org. And again, you can find more about the program and find a local club.
Oh, thanks so much for that insight. Thanks so much for what you're doing for our community. All right, take care. Have a good day. All right, plenty more stories for you coming up, folks. This is The Take. That's what you're watching. And we'll be back right after this. Welcome back. With interest rates and the White House on a collision course, Jerome Powell may be caught in the crossfire. CNN's Maribel Aber joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. And good morning to you, Maribel. Talk to us about this letter the president sent to the Federal Reserve Chair.
Hey, good morning, Chesley. Friction between President Trump and Fed Chair Jerome Powell escalated Monday after the president sent him a handwritten note demanding he cut the key interest rate. The note, scrawled in marker over a chart ranking the world's central banks by their key interest rate, claimed the U.S. has one of the highest. Now, Trump claims the Fed has, quote, cost the USA a fortune in high interest rates on its debt. Powell, who was appointed by Trump during his first term, has repeatedly rebuffed political influence and vowed to focus only on monetary policy. Presidents typically wait until the final few months of an incumbent Fed chair's term to announce their successor nominee. Powell's term ends next May, but Trump has recently signaled he may name his desired replacement for Powell this summer. And if he does so, Chesley, it would be an unprecedented development in the Fed's 111-year history.
Wow. All right, we'll be waiting to see about that. Mark Zuckerberg's latest move with Meta has investors buzzing and the tech giants watching closely. What's going on there?
Okay, Meta is going all in on AI, Chesley. Mark Zuckerberg announced Monday he's creating Meta Superintelligence Labs to accelerate innovation in artificial intelligence. Zuckerberg says some of his recent hires, like the former CEOs of Scale AI and GitHub, will be among those leading the labs. Meta has been on an AI hiring blitz as the tech juggernaut faces fierce competition from rivals like OpenAI and Google. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman said in a recent podcast that Meta was recruiting AI researchers from his company, offering signing bonuses of, get this, Chesley, as high as $100 million. Meta shares hit a record high of just over $747 midday Monday on that news. Chesley,
wow.
We're in the wrong business.
You're right about that. We need to be switching over here. Understand there's a new mission in space coming and has a surprise passenger in payload, huh?
Okay, Netflix and NASA are teaming up to start live streaming future rocket launches, spacewalks, and views of Earth. NASA says it wants to expand efforts to reach a global audience. That's according to a press release. And the partnership comes amid a surge in commercial rocket launches led by Elon Musk's SpaceX. SpaceX had 81 launches in the first half of the year. That's according to Space Explored. NASA didn't reveal any financial details of the deal, which is expected to go public later this summer. However, the agency noted that its content will remain free without ads on the NASA app and website where it already has live programming. Chesley.
Good, good, good. All right, finally, Lululemon is taking Costco to court over pants.
This is the story today, Chesley. Lululemon suing Costco, alleging that the discount wholesaler is selling knockoffs of its $128 pants and other pricey athleisure clothing. Specifically, that Costco's private label line Kirkland is selling similar pants, hoodies, and jackets at a fraction of the price, along with misleading customers to believe that the dupes are manufactured by the authentic supplier of the original products. Now, one example in the lawsuit is that Lululemon sells a scuba hoodie for $118, while a Costco version sells for about $8. Lululemon is seeking unspecified monetary damages, demanding that Costco stop selling these products. Costco didn't immediately respond to a media request for comment. I don't know, Chesley. I mean, that's quite a margin, right? $118 versus $8. But I mean, like, what about wine? Or what about, you know what I'm saying? Like, where's that line?
Right, right. But aren't you paying more for the name? I mean, with the name Lululemon on it, then you'd be willing to pay more, right?
It's all about the brand.
Right.
You know, why do women buy expensive handbags? That's why.
And shoes. And shoes.
You know it. You know it.
Maribel, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
You got it.
All right, folks. Data centers are making life easier for us, but it comes with a huge impact on our environment. We're going to talk about that coming up. Stay right there. All right, welcome back to the show. From social media to cloud storage to AI tools like ChatGPT, the demand for digital power is soaring. But behind the tech boom are physical realities, massive data centers using enormous amounts of water, power, and land. With us this morning is Dr. Andrew Chen. He's a professor of computer science at the University of Chicago. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Great to be here.
All right. We hear a lot about the cloud being invisible, but these data centers are everything but, right? Especially here in the Atlanta metro area. From a technical perspective, why does it require so much physical space and resources?
Well, the thing about these data centers is that they're consuming more and more power these days. And that power is being consumed by tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of computing units, CPUs, and GPUs. So that's why they need so much space.
Water is a hot button issue when it comes to these data centers, right? Why do they use water, or why do they rely on water for cooling and maybe not like air conditioning or something else?
Yeah, so most data centers these days use a combination of technology you might call air conditioning, where they're basically pumping the heat out of the data center. But the most efficient way, actually, to cool the data centers is, what we sometimes call Texas air conditioning. You take a wet towel, you put it on your head, you blow a fan over yourself. And when you do that, actually, you evaporate the water. So that kind of cooling technology called evaporative cooling technology is actually evaporating the water away into the atmosphere. So that's how they consume the water.
I gotcha. Do you know how much power it takes to power these data centers?
It's grown tremendously. Around 2000, when we had an internet boom, a large data center was 10 or 20 megawatts. But today, they're building complexes that could grow to as large as a gigawatt, or even some of the largest ones that have been announced, like Stargate, could be as large as 5 gigawatts. So just to put that in perspective, the average home consumes a little over a kilowatt average power. So a gigawatt data center is consuming the power of almost 1 million homes.
Wow. Wow. Is there a balance, Dr. Chen? Is there a balance where we still want to grow digitally, but we also want to protect the environment and protect our neighborhoods?
Yeah, I think it's important to strike a balance, because it seems pretty clear that we're all going to use more and more computing, right, every day. It's not only just consuming, digital media, streaming services, and so on, but increasingly, by adding AI to all these services to make them more intelligent, to make them more capable, that requires a large amount of additional computing. So, the computer scientists look at this and there's sort of no end in sight, right? The natural amount of computing that you or I could consume just seems to grow as far as the eye can see. The big problem right now with this is that the electronic technology that supports our ability to do computing has been improving tremendously every year for the last 50 or 60 years. But that pace of progress has slowed down. Right. So the so-called end of Moore's law, the so-called end of Dennard scaling, and that means that the amount of energy required per computation is not decreasing as fast as it used to. It may seem like a complicated set of things coming together, but in effect, what that means is in the future, when we do more computing, it's going to require more energy, more water, bigger data centers, and more resources.
So technology changes so rapidly. Is there somebody already looking at that? Are we going to go beyond data centers, perhaps?
Oh, yeah, people are definitely looking at it. People have been pursuing different things to make technology scale better for the last 50 years. That's how we got here. But over the last 10 years, we've sort of run out of things to do. And there's still a huge economic incentive, right? The semiconductor industry is hundreds of billions of dollars. And there's huge interest in making those semiconductors, those chips, more power efficient and faster and so on. But the problem is we sort of run out of all of the easy stuff to do to make them faster and cheaper. So it doesn't look like we're going to be able to resuscitate that rapid performance increase. So it does look like we're going to have to be a little bit more careful about how to conserve, how to use computing efficiently. And then on the environmental impact side, there's things that data centers can do to operate better with the power grid. So you can operate a data center a little bit more flexibly so that it can consume more power when there's more renewable energy. That's one way of reducing its environmental impact. You can cool the data center using different kinds of cooling technology that reduce the amount of water it uses, right? And some of the big companies have made commitments to try and reduce their amount of water use. And so there are things you can do, and I think we need to work really hard at trying to minimize the negative environmental impacts of computing, because we're surely going to use more and more of it going forward.
Yeah. In your opinion, what would be the smartest way for a local government to construct one of these data centers and get the best deals for the community?
Oh, that's a great question. So one of the challenges with data centers is when you build them, you typically have a fair number of jobs around construction, right? Building the infrastructure and so on. But after they go into full operation, and that might take a long time if you have a big data center complex. It might take 5 or 7 years before it's fully into operation. Most of the jobs involve running the computers. So those are IT management kind of jobs. And often those don't even wind up in the community where the data center is. And then there's some physical maintenance jobs, replacing computers, fixing computers, security, all that kind of stuff. So those jobs are not large number compared to the size of the capital investment of the data center. So what can communities do? I think communities should band together and insist that the data center is environmentally responsible. And they might want to negotiate some kinds of contribution to community. I think they're sometimes called community benefit agreements to ensure that some of the value and the employment of this digital bonanza that's happening comes to the community where the data centers are hosting it.
Gotcha. All right. Dr. Andrew Chin, thanks so much for your insight. Really appreciate that.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. Take care. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. Back with my final take right after this. Well, if you're sick of those afternoon scattered showers and thunderstorms, we got one more day, folks. If we can hold out one more day, you see it going down. Only a 20% chance on Wednesday, and then we're dry Thursday, Friday for the holiday. Looking good. 93 degrees will be the afternoon high temperature. We'll see that humidity slowly start to creep back in and bring us the chance for more showers as we head into next week. But the weekend, for now, looks to be mighty, mighty nice. All right, before we go, my final take. And, I think things are about to change on cruise lines. Yeah, this after a dramatic rescue of a father and daughter who went overboard on a Disney cruise. The father was taking a photo of his 5-year-old daughter as she sat on the rail of a Disney cruise ship. The young girl fell overboard, and of course, naturally, the father jumps in after her. Shout out to the Disney cruise crew who quickly responded. They must practice this thing all the time. They quickly responded with a rescue boat, pulled the father and the daughter in, and everybody is A-OK. But there's got to be some changes coming, right? But what does that look like? No one wants to be enclosed on a ship or a boat. Yeah, that's not fun, right? And I'm sure they're going to be enforcing a no child over a certain age sitting on railings if they don't already have that in place. That means more parental policing. Come on, play it safe, folks out there with your kids. I know you want that beautiful shot, but is it worth it, right? That's all we got for you today, folks. Try to encourage someone, including yourself. Make it a great day.